So my name is Pamela Ware. I went to Smoothie King to purchase a smoothie, and I just wanted what my leftover in the blender. I just wanted what was left over in the blender. That's all I wanted. I paid for it. I felt as though I was entitled to it, and I didn't get it. The service the service was good. I'm not going to take away from that young man. He did what he was supposed to do. He did his job. It's just the corporation that I have a problem with, not really treating consumers the way consumers should be treated. Because otherwise, we're the ones who's patronizing these businesses and trying to keep them afloat at the same time, trying to keep ourselves afloat. So we're there helping them out, and yet, they don't want to be considerate of doing what I believe is the right thing. It's been about a couple of weeks now since I went to the Smoothie King, and I ordered a 20 ounce. I believe it was from their slim side of the menu, which consists of banana, mango, pineapple, and I paid additional for strawberries to be in it. And there was some that was left over in the blender. So I asked the guy that was there, I said, so can I have the rest of what's left in the blender? He said no, he could not do that because he was being watched. I'm like, what do you mean you're being watched? So I happened to look up at the ceiling and saw 3 cameras all in a row. And I'm like, oh, okay. Perhaps maybe you being watched because you're a black man in this store and they don't want you stealing anything. I cannot imagine you just giving me what's left over in the blender. How is that would be a problem? So he says he would like to, but unfortunately he was being watched. So I'm like, okay, so do you have the corporate telephone number? And he said he didn't have the corporate telephone number, that I could Google it. I'm like, okay, I'll do that. So I did that, and I contacted the corporation and spoke with the receptionist and explained to them what was going on, what had happened. And, she took down my complaint and she said that she would have somebody give me a call, probably the district manager of the store. Well, I got a call from the district manager of that store the very same day. And this happens to be on a Wednesday that I went into the store. And so I explained to him, about what happened and how I just wanted what was left over in the blender. I said, because I paid for it, So he said they don't do that. And I'm like, well, why not? The consumer paid for it. So all of it belongs to the consumer, and you have courtesy cups on the side. I'm not like I'm asking you to fill up another 20-ounce cup. You have courtesy cups. What is the purpose of the courtesy cups on the side if it's not, used to give the consumer the rest of their product? I'm like, I paid for the product, So he was very rude and very nasty. And I explained to him, I'm like, this is what your store manager, I'm like, he did nothing wrong. He was just following the instructions or your corporation. And, so we kind of had some words back and forth. And I told him, I said, I think you guys are just, watching him because he's black and you want to make sure that he doesn't steal anything. I said, because the way the cameras are positioned in your store, I'm like, it's positioned to make sure that the employees is not taking anything, and also and to prevent that if somebody comes in there and want to hold up the place, or you'll have the pictures, the cameras. I'm like, I understand the purpose of the cameras being there. I understand that wholeheartedly. I said, but in the light of what is going on now, in the world, and with the racism that is going on as well, I'm like, and then you got this guy who just happened to be of color in your store. I'm like, all of that, all of that just creates a whole bunch of problems. So he didn't want to hear anything that I had to say, wasn't trying to be reasonable. It's just, this is the way Smoothie King is. This is what the corporation does. And, and that's just our policy. And no, we don't give, the extras or whatever, so I'm just explaining to him, I'm like, what? We're the customers. Without us, you wouldn't have no business. And I'm like, we're in a pandemic, and we, trying to keep businesses afloat by patronizing your business, and if this is the way that you treat, customers and stuff, I told him, I will not come back to your store. I told him, I said, because this does not, not all Smoothie Kings operate the way that this particular Smoothie King operated, which is located on 14th and U Street in Washington, D.C. And I told him, I said, I've been to Smoothie King when they first opened in College Park, Maryland. And I'm like, and I've never had that experience. If whatever is left over in the blender, they ask, would you like to have the leftover, or if you would drink down some of your smoothie already, we can give you the leftovers in what you purchase. We had the conversation, and it was getting pretty intense, and the person hung up on me. He hung up. So I said, okay. So I called back the next day, which was on Thursday. And again, I'm not sure if I spoke to the same person or not. But what I ended up doing, we had words again, and I explained my same position, and he's like, well, this, the cameras. And I'm like, I understand the purpose of the cameras. I'm like, I'm not oblivious to that. I understand your purpose. I'm still saying, as a consumer, that you should give the leftovers to the customers. At least you should offer it. But their position is that they take the leftovers and they throw it away. And I explained to him, well, that's like you throwing away my money. Okay, because I paid for it, and I understand that you've given me a 20 ounce, but still what is left over should be given to the customers. I said, well, the way he explained it is that the cameras are there to make sure that the person who's making the smoothie use the exact amount of fruit. And I said, but you have a scale that the person who's making the smoothie weighs the fruit on the scale to make sure that they're putting in the right amount of fruit. Now, I've watched the young man do this, and he did everything according to corporate rules and regulations. there's still going to be leftovers, which I don't think corporate understands that. Or perhaps maybe they do and just don't want to oblige the customer any further. Because I told them, I was like, I make smoothies at home too. And I use a certain amount of fruit. And I told them, there's still going to be leftovers left in the blender. And I'm not throwing it away. I'm drinking it. So, he said, well, what do you want to do? We can refund your money. I was like, well, I would like for you to refund my money. And I paid $8.07 for that smoothie. And he said that, okay, well, we will refund your money. I'm like, okay, not a problem. Well, last week, I get another call from, I guess, the regional manager, whoever he was. And we had the same conversation again. So this is like the third time that I have voiced my opinion, okay, regarding Smoothie King. I'm like, we're in a pandemic, and I'm like, all I'm asking for was just the leftovers, of what was left over in the blender. I'm like, that's all I'm asking for. You guys act like I am asking you to do the impossible. And I'm like, it's not impossible. We're in a pandemic. Businesses are closing. Some of them are never going to return again. And you want to be one of the businesses that stays in business. And then I explained to him, I'm like, listen, I am going on PissedConsumer, and I'm not going to give you a very good review. Believe you me. And he said, I understand. I understand that. I was like, I hope you do, because I want people to know that this is, what you guys do. Instead of compromising, you won't even compromise. You just rather sit up here and have a debate back and forth, over some fruit, that left over. And I'm like, your people are doing what they're supposed to do because they know they're being watched. So they're measuring out the fruit. They're doing exactly what you expect them to do. But still you're going to have leftovers. And I don't understand why you just can't give the leftovers to the customers as opposed to pouring it down the drain. Do you not understand how you are still wasting money? I don't understand the logic, the thinking that Smoothie King thinks. I don't understand how they operate their business. It's not like I see a whole lot of people running into Smoothie Kings. It's not like that. I explained to them about McDonald's. I'm like, listen, if I go to McDonald's and they give me a half a box of fries, I'm going to complain, and I'm like, and therefore they make it right. I'm like, I don't understand, what is the big deal? Why you as a company won't make it right? I'm like, you're not really doing anything to help people that are hurting. It's not like you're giving away a bunch of free smoothies. So, he's like, well, here's what I can do. I can't, I can give you back your money, but I'm going to need your card because I paid with my debit card. And I don't know when you're going to go back into the store, or I can give you a gift card. And I told him, I said, listen, I don't, I don't know when I'm going to go back into your store either, but I do want my refund because I don't want to do business with a business who don't really know how to do business, in my opinion. So he offered me a gift card. So I sent my information to him, and I haven't received the gift card yet. So I guess that's uh, my refund. But like I said, I won't be patronizing Smoothie King anymore. And I think, you know, for what the prices that they're charging for a smoothie, you should be entitled to all of your smoothie. Whatever is left over in the blender should be given to the customer as opposed to being discarded, because that it's still part of the customer's purchase.